Hi there, I'm Anissa with Pure Landscape out of Goodyear, Arizona. Today what I wanted to talk about is plant renovation or renovation pruning. Also, it's referred to as plant revitalization or plant rejuvenation. People refer to it all under those names, but it's the same thing. What it means is pretty much cutting back pretty harshly a mature plant. So today we're going to do a plant renovation on this shrub right here. This shrub is 3 years old. It's never been pruned. It happens to be a Ruellia of the Chi-Chi pink variety. So you might be wondering, why do we need to do this? Should we do it? Do we have to do it? How often do we do it? And why on this particular plant right now? It's getting blooms. It's springtime. It's March right now in the Phoenix area. The plant looks pretty good. But what I want to do is protect the plant's future. I want to make sure that it's set up for the optimal health of the plant. And there's a couple of things that come into play with that. This one's never been pruned, so we've got some things going for us already. But typically, you'll have plants that have been pruned over and over again. A lot of landscapers and homeowners alike, they tend to shear their plants. They use a hedge trimmer and they shave off their plants little bits at a time. And when you do that, you have little tiny clippings that end up getting cut and they end up falling into the plant. It's hard to get that blown out or all taken out. So over the years, you get a lot of buildup of leaf drop inside of the plant. You also get that from neighboring plants just dropping litter, and it ends up in this plant. The problem with that is it ends up filling up the interior, and then number one, you can get pests in there. You can create a fungus issue because there's so much plant material, and when it gets wet from the rain, let's say, it can retain that moisture for a long time and actually get moldy. And then the third issue that's a problem with all that leaf drop is you've got drip irrigation in here. So when the drip emitter is just dripping out a little bit of water, chances are it's getting that leaf drop wet. That's soaking it up, and then it's evaporating from there and possibly never even reaching the soil, not to mention 2 to 3 feet deep, which is what you want to give your plant a really good watering. So that's one of the main reasons that we would renovate a plant, is to help get rid of all the litter that's in the interior. Another reason is the plant looks great from the outside. You don't realize how much dead sticks and dead plant material naturally forms on the inside. So you can get that all out of there, give the plant more space to grow brand new fresh stems that are going to look good and vibrant, nice and green. On evergreen plants, where they don't ever lose their leaves, sometimes you'll get some tattered leaves from maybe a time of drought where they browned a little bit, or some kind of malnourishment that happened, and you get some bad looking leaves that are never going to go away if it's an evergreen plant. So then you just end up suffering with that poor looking plant unless you prune it. You could prune those little individual stems or leaves off. That's pretty meticulous. Or you could just let it be, and then you can renovate it from time to time. Another reason that we do plant renovation is if the plant is just too big for the area. Either it's gotten so mature and so large it no longer fits the space and you just want to downsize it. This is a great way to do that. Or if it's just too large of a species for the space and you're constantly fighting it back by pruning, you can do it all at once and buy yourself probably a whole season and not need to prune it again. With this plant, it's 3 years old. I'm going to renovate it today, and I'm going to plan on not pruning it again for at least 3 years, unless something happens, like there's a real drought and I get those bad leaves and I want to get rid of it. Now, when you're getting ready to renovate, you have to be prepared for the ugliness that comes after that. There's going to be almost nothing left of the plant. Some plants, depending on the species, you might have a little bit of greenery left, but maybe not. You might be left with just dead-looking sticks. You have to be okay with that. It's going to be pretty short-term, but if you're a landscaper and you're doing it for a homeowner or a customer, you want to either prepare them for that, or if they say, no, I don't want that, I want everything looking good all the time, you can do the renovation in stages in order to prevent that. The way that you would stage a plant renovation is you would do a partial renovation. You would cut out some of the branches to allow sunlight to get into the plant. That's going to spur new green growth. So then you'll have some short interior new greenery that comes in once the sunlight reaches the interior. Then once that appears, then you can go back and cut off the rest of the branches and you'll be left with an already very small but green plant. Then you never really have a time of ugliness. You just have kind of a partially pruned plant at first. The greenery comes, then you cut it off, and you've got a great looking plant that's just going to get bigger from there. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to pretend, I'm going to start renovating this, but I'm going to pretend that I want to have a time where it's not completely ugly, and I'm going to do a partial pruning, and we're going to see if there's any greenery left in there. Maybe there's some new growth already, or maybe we're going to pretend that sunlight's going to get in and we're going to, over the next 2 weeks, allow for some new greenery to come in before we cut all the rest off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go all the way down to the base. I'm not interested in saving any length here. I don't need anything. So it's okay to cut it completely off. You want to pay attention to the angle of the sun if you're doing this partial renovation where you're trying to avoid that ugly stage. Look at where the sun is likely to come into the plant and create holes at the right angle so that you're going to create those pockets for the sun to come in and allow that green growth to start. So you can see I'm starting to open it up. You could see how sunlight would come in here and allow for some new green growth to begin. As I'm doing this, I'm finding some dead sticks in here. So you didn't really know it was there, but I'm happy to get rid of it, so that's a good reason to renovate. Right here would be a great pocket. Homeowner wouldn't really notice this. It doesn't look ugly right now. It just looks a little bit open and a little bit more empty. It's starting to look quite a bit thinner than what it was when we started. It's pretty airy now compared to what it was when we started. So easily the sunlight would get in right now and it would create some new green growth. But as I'm doing it, I'm already noticing if I was planning to stage it right now, I would rethink it. I would say I don't need to do that because there's already some green growth in here. I'd be okay with cutting it all off right now because I've got this fresh greenery that was there in the interior, that if I were to cut every stem off right now down to the ground, we would still have some greenery left, provided I leave that, and the plant would look great as is. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm being careful not to cut those green stems because there's only a few. If I cut them off, then I won't have anything left. As I'm doing this, I'm watching for where the drip emitter is. There's some leaf drop in here, so there's some debris, and the drip irrigation is kind of hidden. I want to be careful not to cut off the drip irrigation. Sometimes when you use, here's another dead stem, when you use a hedge trimmer, what naturally tends to happen is you go ahead and you shear off the drip line by accident because you're not watching for it. You're doing it so fast that you don't see that it's there. So by hand pruning, you're going to make sure that you avoid the drip irrigation. I can also do a quick visual check, make sure it's still good. It's rubber or it's polyethylene, make sure it's still pliable, which it is. Everything's fine with it. But I'm glad to have located it because I know where it is now. It's not buried. I can turn on my irrigation right now if I want to and test, make sure water's coming out with the proper flow rate. That'll tell me that there aren't any clogs and everything's working properly. When you do plant renovation that's pretty significant like this, you want to make sure that your irrigation's working before you do it. So you either want to run a start before you begin, make sure water flow is coming. You could give your plant a good drink the day before, or you can give it a good drink right after you do it. More dead sticks. Okay, we could call that done. If you don't like the idea that you've got some long ones hanging out, you could certainly cut those down. If you've noticed that the plant is starting to creep too wide, you could go ahead and just pull that out and probably get it out by the roots. So now there's a bunch of leaves in here. Later we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna blow this out really super well so that this is all clear. In this case, we didn't have any fungus. There's a little weed. We didn't have any fungal material in here, but I did one the other day and there was definitely a lot of mold and fungus in it. There's a little bit here. I don't know if you can see that. Kind of some gray, white. That comes from just this material getting wet and staying wet because there's a lot of it. And of course the objective is for the water to drip out of this drip and actually go down and penetrate the soil. So once this is blown out, it's going to be perfect. This plant's going to be good to go for about 3 years. Don't plan on touching it unless something happens where we need to, but it eliminates the need for regular maintenance if you renovate once every however often, maybe 3 years. So that's all I have for today. See you next time.